Yes. As I light this candle, remember, you and everyone here is the light. Allow this light that you are to shine. And so we affirm together, I am the light I am. I am the light I am. I am the light I am. So, I invite you to step into this beautiful prayer time with me. Just relax. Be here now. Know that after we do our closing, we will be in meditation for a couple of minutes, and Brent will bring us back with music. So, we are here together celebrating community, love, inspiration, joy, and all of God's gifts. Infinite presence, sweet, sweet spirit, abounding in all of these infinite possibilities is all there is. No matter where I look, no matter where I am, it's all divine, divinity expressing. In my mind's eye, I look to nature and I see clouds, flowers, birds, and yes, it's all this infinite presence expressing. And so I rejoice, for I am one with all that is. All that is divine essence. And as I breathe that in, I realize that my breath is life-giving. My heart is this drum roll of love, infinite love. And so, knowing I am one with all that is, I see each of us unfolding as the universe opens up in possibility for each of us, for our dreams, for our angels, for each other. I hold this as truth. And in this moment of acknowledging and receiving all of the gifts in the flow of life, yes, I allow, I accept, I receive. I see each of us open to more and more good. The words spoken today inspire. The music is joy. Our community together is love. In gratitude, I release this into the spiritual law that works naturally and eternally. I know this is truth for me, for each of us. And in this release, I affirm that this truth is who we are. And together we say, and so it is. Now, 2 minutes contemplation.
Mm. Boy, I think we could just sit and contemplate that for a while, right? Yeah. Lift your head above the clouds. That's what we're talking about today. So I want to start with a little seasonal thing, and we're going to play with this year with a little bit of the theme of Advent. So we have an Advent candle here, and I'm going to light the first of the candles of our Advent wreath. Advent is a time of preparation, a time of getting ready for something. The word Advent is a moving toward. It's a Latin combination of two Latin words, ad, which means to or toward, and vent, which is wind or movement, motion. So we're being moved towards, blown towards something. You know, the whole universe is here to support us in remembering who we truly are. And so in a way, it's blowing us towards, and sometimes it takes a pretty big wind, right? Sometimes we just get the gentle summer breeze and we pay attention, and sometimes it takes a small tornado to get us, or maybe a large tornado to get us to move. But we're always being blown towards an awareness of the light of who we truly, truly, truly are. And so in earlier times, in a calmer civilization before kind of where we're living today, people would prepare for things. And it was a largely agrarian culture in the world, and so they would prepare for planting, right? They would prepare for things. These days, it's more like just, okay, Christmas is coming, let's do this, get our checklist checked off, and we're going to check off Christmas. Did Christmas? Okay, been there, done that. I just did Thanksgiving, by the way. And we're going to do Christmas, and then we're going to do New Year's, and then we're going to do Valentine's Day. Watch the stores. They'll tell you what you're supposed to be paying attention to, right? But in earlier times, people understood the sacredness of preparation, both for the physical, for the land, as well as for the spirit and the heart. And so Advent is this deep appreciation and deep preparation for something that's deeper, that's to truly experience the light. And so the four candles point out a path which can take us deeper if we will let them. So the first candle is hope. This first Sunday of Advent is hope. Now, some of you who are familiar with Ernest Holmes know that it's been said that Ernest Holmes considered hope a dirty word, because he wanted to go something a little stronger than that. But hope to me is the dawn. It's the first glimmer that light is coming or that light is present. It's the first thing we notice. Ernest actually does support hope in other parts of his writing. When we've been living in a dark night of despair, when we've been living in a feeling of separation, hope is the first beginning that there's a possibility for there to be light. We've all been through that, right? We've all been through, sometimes it's just the dark night, and sometimes it's the dark night of the soul, and there comes a point where we suddenly realize something is shifting. There's a fresh air coming, there's a fresh light coming. And so that's hope. It's the beginning point on this journey to the remembrance and awareness of the light that's being conceived of and born and renewed within us. And that light gets symbolized this time of year through solstice, through Christmas, through all sorts of, there's a whole bunch of festivals of light in this coming month of December. So in some traditions, in the Christian traditions, today is a day to remember the hope that Jesus is coming back. But that's not our practice. That's not our path of what we're doing. We don't wait for somebody out there up in the sky to come back. We work with ourselves to return to our authenticity and our authentic selves. If you're like me, you get thrown off of that every once in a while and you kind of forget. And so it's, can I bring myself back to that? The hope that we believe is spoken by Ernest Holmes in his Summary of the Science of Mind book. Very last paragraph in the entire book, where he summarizes everything he just wrote, says, the essence of spiritual mind healing and of all true religious philosophy is an inner realization of the presence of perfection within and around about. The realization of the presence of perfection, that's a capital P, perfection, within and all around us. It is the hope of heaven, the voice of God proclaiming, I am that which thou art that which I am. You're God in form. I'm God in form. We're just remembering it. And the infinite universe is speaking it to us, sometimes yelling, sometimes gently, all the time, constantly. Can we tune into that? So that is our light of hope that we begin this season of celebrations of light with. And that's not my talk. That's not what I came here to talk about. We've been looking this whole month at the idea of home, and we've been looking this whole year of living everyday wonder and living in a state of wonder and curiosity, not taking everything as solid for granted, but saying, what else? What's deeper than this? What's that wonder? And so we've been looking this month at the idea of home. And our talk today is Welcome to Your Dream Home. Welcome to your dream home. And when we think of our dream home, we like to think of some perfect, beautiful, pretty place, yes? Oh, come on, be honest. Yes. But we've been talking all month about the idea that home is not a place, not just a place or a time or people, but it's a state of consciousness. When I am at home in my consciousness, I am deeply at home no matter where I am. And as we grow and expand, our consciousness and thus our home expands. Because it follows. See, snakes and shellfish shed their skins and shells. Boy, say that 5 times real fast. I did not realize I had all those S's and SH's in there. Snakes and shellfish shed their skins and shells, not because they're. I'm going to use that, Shani, for a new vocal mic test. They get all the sh's. But they get rid of them not because there's something wrong with the skin or the shell, but because they are expanding, they are growing, and so they have to release what's served them in the past but doesn't fit anymore. So we are already in our dream home because our current consciousness creates our current home, and the dream of our current consciousness shows up as our home, the overall home everywhere in our life in which we live, our physical home, as well as our health, our bodies in which we live, our families, our friends, our enemies, our work, our cars, our clothing, everything that we live within this human form is the dream of our current consciousness showing up in form. It's a result of our current thinking and dreaming. Ernest Holmes says it is necessary that soul and body should exist because spirit, without manifestation, would construct only a dream world, not coming to self-realization. So we are in the process, we're playing with these skin suits and all this stuff of this world as spirit coming to self-realization, instead of just hanging out in a fantasy dream. Breathe that in. That's why we know that our bodies are sacred. The chair you're sitting on is sacred. This building is sacred not because it's a spiritual center, but because it is God in form. The land around it is sacred because. It's also important to remember that much of what we dream of is the collective unconscious dream, which is usually not our own authentic dream. There's a Pink Floyd song, Welcome to the Machine, that there's a line in it that says, "What did you dream? It's okay, we told you what to dream." And that's in a way what the collective consciousness does to us, is it tells us what to dream. It's reminiscent of Don Miguel Ruiz's Mitote that he talks about, the dream world, the collective domestication dream that he talks about in his book, The Four Agreements. And it's a dream from which we must awaken in order to be who we really came here to be. To express as our fully awake, authentic selves. And the good news is, we are the architects and builders of our dream home. And what we have and we can change, what we have created. We can change. This is the good news of this teaching. We can change. Yes? It's also the bad news, but it's the good news is we can change. We can create something new. So, because, as my favorite Ernest Holmes quote is, principle is not bound by precedent. The infinite process of creation, the creative process, isn't bound by what came before. We can create new in each and every single moment. By the way, we are. It's just that most of the time we're recycling the things that we already know. But we have the opportunity to step aside from that and say, I want to create something absolutely new in my life that I may not have ever experienced or even imagined before. And yet I know there's a possibility that it can exist. And if there's a possibility, guess what? I can manifest that. That can happen for me. I lost my place in here. That's why I lost my place in there. I'm home. So what does it take to consciously build a home which expresses our authentic self? Less entrapped in our conditioning and more fully being ourselves. The first thing is, as any real estate person will tell you, location, location, location. So first, notice you're on planet Earth. In bodies. You've noticed that? Sometimes, yes. We're here at this time with all these conditions. Many people have trouble being present or being aware that they're on planet Earth or in their locations. They choose to just float above it all with the angels in kind of a spiritual bliss out, spiritual bypass life. Oh, la, 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 it's all good. This morning's email shared reading from Father Richard Rohr. There's a speaker who talks about that what's the future of Christianity, and many people can say, oh, it's wonderful, it's fabulous, and can go on with their previously scheduled apathy and unconsciousness. And the same, by the way, for the ones who say, oh, it's terrible, there's nothing I can do about it. We can go on with our previously scheduled just way of being unconscious and apathetic. So we have to notice where we are. We're manifest form of spirit. So some people choose to live above it all and all la la. Other people get so locked into the ground and the muck and the mud of conditions that they forget there is an above. They forget there actually is a sky. They forget there actually is a light. That's why we have to do some preparation work. We forget the beauty and the joy and the love that is life, the playfulness that is life. Some of you may have noticed there's a car out there in the parking lot with reindeer antlers and a nose on the front of it. And it's because the person who owns that car believes in the playfulness of spirit. It's my car, by the way. Because being a spiritual person is not always a deep, dark, heavy, got to work through it. No, spirit is playful. The infinite universe is playful. All the spiritual teachers had humor as part of their teaching. So can we remember that? Can we open up to the sky? Does our location have a beautiful view of earth, sky, water, and air? Does it have both a close-in immediacy and the far horizon that we can see from that? Do we have an expansive view? Or do we get stuck in city canyons just dealing and coping with day-to-day existence? Or have we burrowed deep underground hoping that all that noise above us will just simply go away? Is our location in a volcano? I was invited to with some friends to have Thanksgiving brunch on Thanksgiving morning, and one of the people there said, "Well, I live on Summit Lake, not on the lake, but right, near the lake." And somebody else said, "Oh, that's actually a lake that's formed out of a volcano. That hill, that mountain, whatever, is a volcano." And the person's like, "Oh my God, I'm living on a volcano." Some of us live our lives on volcanoes that are constantly going off. You know what I mean? Not you, but you've seen those people, right? Are we living on a fault line with frequent earthquakes where our whole ground shakes beneath us? Are we living in a tornado or hurricane alley where everything gets blown apart? Again, I know none of you, but maybe a long time ago you experienced that, and you don't have to repeat it. What does our expansive divine soul want for a location that supports its full expression? And then once we have a location, once we are kind of located where we want to be, it's time to build a foundation. Are we building castles in the air? One of my favorite Henry David Thoreau quotes is, "If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now, put the foundations under them." The way most people build is by the way foundation first and then. But if you're building castles in the air, ground them with a foundation. We can also build foundations which will eventually support huge structures, yet such foundations have to go deep. You can't build a 100-story skyscraper on a concrete slab and expect that it will stand. We go deep into the ground of consciousness. This is where that wonderful Psalm 127 says, "Unless the Lord build the house, they labor in vain who build it." So that we have to go deep into our spiritual nature, our spiritual self, to feel that divine presence, to let that then be the foundation upon which we build the house. Our ego wants to throw down a quick concrete slab and throw up something real quick just to say, "Hey, look, I built something. I got it done. Now let's move on to the next thing. Check that one off, we're going on." But that will not build a deep consciousness, that will not build a deep life, that will not build a deep home. So doing practices that create something more than a quickly thrown together tract home. So we take time to connect with our heart and our soul, connect with our authentic self and ask, what is it that spirit? What is it that the infinite consciousness that I am wants to create here? And we take the time in the process to listen, to go deep, to clear out the dirt or rock or whatever that doesn't belong there, that will not support our structure, and replace that with stuff that will, whatever that is. How many of you know that we all have stuff under our foundations that will not support expanding until we clear it out? Yeah. Some of those things might sound like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of anything more than I have. I love it. Some of the practitioners and I were taking a class a couple months ago, and we were working with this affirmation, there is a greater and greater good for me. We don't stop at just great. We go to greater, and then we go and greater good for me. And I ought to have it, by the way. So things like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm a poor person separate from source. I spent Thanksgiving with my daughters. My younger daughter is having financial issues, and she kept going on, well, as a poor person, I can't afford this. Well, as a poor person, I can't, do this. And I just wanted to, whack her, but, I don't do that. But I will have a conversation with her, in a few days and just say, hey, if you keep on affirming that, you're going to keep on living that. So this is where this kind of stuff, clearing out the foundation, is where we work with practitioners, where we take classes, where we go deeper with spiritual mind treatment, where we clear out the old that doesn't support us and replace it with stuff that will. And without this core step, we're building in vain, which is why we see people's big, beautiful mansions of their lives, topple when the going gets good. Not often when the going gets bad, but if I have an I don't deserve it, it's when the going gets good that finally shows up and crashes the lives. Ernest Holmes says, free yourself forever from the thought that God may be pleased by a life of sacrifice, that the world is any better because of your misery, or that righteousness is more perfectly expressed through poverty than abundance. Get that out of your mind forever, because it's not the truth. One of the most undermining thoughts we can have is that I must suffer to please God or others, that my having my dream home takes away from others' abilities to have theirs. In fact, the opposite is true. As we gain skill in building our dream home, we can teach others to build their dream homes, their dream lives. We don't take anything away, we add. And we can teach them not from theory, not because I read in a book how to do this, but from actual practice. I've been there, I've walked this path, I know what it looks like and feels like. So as we lay our foundation, the next question then is, how big, how expansive do we desire to build? And desire is spirit expressing its heart desire through us. And again, I'm not talking about the stuff that's caught up in the dream of, everything has to be bigger and better, but I'm talking about what is it that the spirit within us, the authentic self within us, that we are listening to, how big does it want to go? In human form, we want to use resources wisely and well, but in consciousness, in spirit, we are unlimited. Unlimited. There are no boundaries on it. Dreams, ideas, the foundations of forms are limited. But again, we take nothing away from others or life itself by calling forth the highest divine qualities that we want to express and we wish to embody as our home. I don't know about you, but I want a big spiritual home. Anybody else? Yes? Ernest again says, know that the greater abundance of every good thing which you are bringing out in your life, the more perfectly you are satisfying the divine urge within you. The more you are bringing out every good quality, the more you are being God in form. It goes on to say, and this first part of this is one of his all caps, so this is like the pay attention. Anything you can dream of is not too great for you. Say it with me. Anything I can dream of is not too great for me. And breathe that in. So how big do you want your home? Lots of rooms to play in. You will have to dust occasionally in consciousness. Or do you want a one-room shack with maybe running water, maybe not? Your consciousness can, will, and is always creating your home. Again, that's the good news, bad news of this. We have to take responsibility for what we have created, but we don't have to be stuck by what we've created. We can create something new. Our walls. We need a healthy structure. What kind of walls do we have? Are they thick that keep people out? Are they kind of semi-permeable, or they have lots of windows to let light in? Do we have walls at all? Maybe we have no boundaries whatsoever, and everybody just kind of rolls in and rolls out. Are they really thin, and the big bad wolf can come along and go, huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down? Or do we have walls that are solid and yet open? What are the colors you want? Monotone or some some color. Lots of vibrant, bright, energetic colors, or perhaps different colors in different rooms. Some vibrant, some peaceful. Some people, the color of their home's consciousness, they have so much color, so much drama, so much activity and noise going on that they're always exhausted and needing a place to pause and be at peace. In my spiritual home, I like to build some of both. I don't want to live a monotone, boring life, but I do want color, but I don't want to be so overwhelmed by life that I'm just flat out exhausted. What's the emotional vibrancy of your inner home? What's your emotional vibrancy? And what do you want it to be? Because you get to choose. And next, how is it furnished? Old hand-me-downs? For a long time, I had my parents' furniture. And some of you remember, I don't like my parents that well, or did not have that pleasant of an experience with my parents, I'll just put it that way. And yet there it was, all sitting there around me, kind of reminding me every single day. I finally got rid of all that. Do we want to have the latest socially driven fashions, or do we want to have things that bring us authentic joy? What do we want to furnish ourselves with? Do we want to have a home that's clean and open and flowing, or cluttered and over-furnished because we can't say no? Must everything be in perfect order and symmetry, not a single speck out of place? It looks like a home and garden or whatever photograph all the time. Must look that way. Or is there room for a little asymmetry and change and the quirkiness of life, the process of life? And finally, who lives with you? Do you share with someone you love, or the roommate from hell? Do you live in solitary confinement, or do you invite friends over often enough to have fun and open minds and hearts? See, our consciousness creates our home, and healthy consciousness is always expanding because that's the nature of the universe. That's the nature of the infinite. Every year I walk through my house and I look at everything in it, and I ask myself, what does this make me feel? Do I feel joy? Do I feel neutral? Or do I feel not happy about this? And then I get the choice. I get to be grateful for and enjoy the things I feel joyful about. I get to be grateful for the neutrals because usually they're just there functional. I don't have to necessarily be happy about the dishwasher or the light. I may have a light that I like. And if it's unpleasant, I have to sit there and go, do I want to shift my feelings about that? Or do I want to just get rid of this thing because it's just making me feel unpleasant? I'm making myself feel unpleasant about it anyway. So it's something to do with our own lives, with our own consciousness. Do I want to shift my feelings? Do I want to pay attention? And that's our spiritual practice this week, is to pay attention to your home. And it can be your physical home, it can be your body home, it can be your relationship home, it can be your car home, it can be your work home, the life home. Take a look at it. Walk through some of your current home life. And without any blame or shame or guilt, just notice the parts where you experience joy and be grateful. The parts of neutrality, and you probably can be grateful because usually neutrality is just something that's doing what it's supposed to do. And the parts of discomfort, recognizing that the discomfort is really the call to expand, to shed an old shell and build a new one. We're either living in a place of expansion, which is our soul expression, or protection, which is our ego's expression. Where do you want to live? As you're building, remember to wear the safety glasses of love and compassion. The universe has already approved your permits. It took less time than it did for the building here. The universe has already approved your permit to build as big as you want. As you build, you change the world. As that song said, I have a dream, and my dream, as I expand it, as I live it, changes the world. And finally, remember that consciousness, both the infinite consciousness and your use of that infinite consciousness, your direction of that consciousness, is always cause. How I use my consciousness creates what it is that I want. So are you good with taking that on as a spiritual practice this week, of checking out your home and maybe seeing where it wants to expand? Are we good with it? Yes. Wonderful. I want to close with a quote from Ernest Holmes. God's willingness to help us, and for those of you who are newer, we don't think of God as some big guy up in the sky that you need to, gain their approval. It's this infinite energy, beingness that we're talking about. So God's willingness to help us is expressed in the existence of that immutable law, which gives us exactly the type of objective experience for which we build a mental likeness. Got that? Our mental likeness is our blueprint. This is what I want to be built, and the law builds it. And he goes on to say, if we have the mental equivalent, the blueprint, of a commodious home, roomy, light, cheery, and an income in keeping with it, if we are able to build in mind the kind of home we wish, and there is nothing in our subjective thought which denies this, then we shall be able to decide and demonstrate for ourselves the kind of home we desire. And while that was written to talk about demonstrating a home, a physical home, it's also the truth of our spiritual home, of our consciousness. I want to close with an affirmation and say this with me. I consciously create the home of my dreams. One more time. I consciously create the home of my dreams, and so it is. All righty. Look at the faces of God, faces of the divine. You're all home. Always. So let us take that in and know that there is this infinite presence, this infinite oneness, this infinite sense of belonging, of home, of presence. And that because it is all that there is, we have to be, and we are one of that already. Whether we remember it or forget it, we still are. And I speak my word that this week we go deeper into that awareness, that we are the one, that we are home, that we do belong in this universe and in every aspect of our lives, that anything that looks like other than that simply dissolves into the no-thingness that it is.